Hey guys, this is Baron. For those who don't know me, I'm on W3C, anywhere from like 2000 to 2100 undead, a little bit above, a little bit below, depending on how bad I'm playing. And recently, Remo put out his proposed PTR changes, and honestly, looking at them, uh, I had a few comments, and I think everyone had a few comments. I think he knew he had some, as he said, some crazier ideas and some more uh, normal ideas. But anyway, Remo's even said it. He's looking at it from the standpoint of pro players. What on a pro level? And frankly, on the pro level right now, there's like 12 players. So I wanted to give the perspective of the ladder player because I play a lot of games. But realistically, I guess my disclaimer is I'm really giving the perspective of an undead in the 2000 to 2100 MMR range. Because what I say may not be true for the 1500s, it may not be true for the 1200s, it may not be true for the 700s, and it may not be true for the humans at my MMR. They may disagree with me. But whatever does get put into place in this new PTR, and then inevitably the patch will impact all MMRs and everyone. So it's good if everyone gives their own opinions. So I'm going to try and do this quick, even though that already took me a minute and a half to say. So Remo, luckily he did a 3 hour video, but he luckily posted some of the what he went through the playlist. So I'm going to be able to look at that. He says current human issues too relying on Archmage as first hero. Fast expansion is not strong enough. Too weak. I get it. That's true at the top level, and honestly, probably even at some of the ladder MMRs. So the first thing is he wants to revert the level 2 water elemental nerf. I don't really, I don't, me personally, I don't see a problem with that. I think maybe some undeads would cry about that, and I think that honestly was directed at the human versus undead matchup. I don't totally hate it doing that, frankly, um, humans, at least at my MMR, much more recently, it's been kind of an evolution as of late. Many of them are now going one base. They are not even trying to expo verse me. And that is because I'm a Cryptlord player. I'm a Cryptlord Expo player, and they realize that. Instead, they are putting on the pressure, and then they hit you at tier 2. So if you, as the undead, because I think, again, this was targeted really towards the human versus undead matchup to begin with, if you are the undead and you are trying to expo and the human stays one base, it is super hard to see when a human is actually teching or when he's just, putting on the aggression and he's going to expo behind it. It's pretty difficult. You're usually a little bit late in finding out what he's actually doing. If he's teching, you're going to be late teching yourself if you try to react in teching. Human only has to get to tier 2, and undead usually has to get to tier 3 to fight versus that. And Cripplord really isn't that strong when a few priests are out and it starts dispelling everything. So honestly, I think humans are finding other ways to do it, at least at the 2000 to 2100 level. But if reverting level 2 water elemental nerf would also allow them to expo a little bit better, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. Now, Flame Strike, for anyone who's played AKM, and again, this is the undead perspective, anyone who has played AKM is scared of this change. Every extra little bit of damage that is done by the Flame Strike means you have that much less time to react before all your acolytes die. And maybe it's only because I am lucky enough to play AKM so much that I am scared of this. Um, yeah, that sometimes I barely get my units away with like 10 HP, and by increasing the damage by 10, it's making it so that potentially you lose literally all 5 acolytes. Now you might say, why don't you just move them when you see them coming in? AKM, as an abuser, uses the invis pot a lot, or he uses invis from the Sorks. And that is going to be one of the things that I'm going to be talking about a lot for some of these changes. People who abuse the hero, the specific hero, on the ladder level. So you got to think about the Blood Mage abusers. This is pretty strong of a change for those who just simply abuse the Blood Mage as a one hero. The Siphon mana cost, I kind of understand that one. He might not even have the mana, especially if he's being used as a first hero to go from 25. So I don't totally hate that change. The rest of it, it's it'd be something I'd have to see. I'm not really too sure about that. The range was what was changed before. If we're feeling like there was a problem with it now, maybe reverting the range or changing the range to something in between would be a different way to approach this. But I don't really have a problem with the second part as far as without really doing any testing. And a lot of this is theory crafting. The Pally Divine Shield change. I don't actually hate it. Um, Again, I'm thinking from the cancer point of view, as we've called it, the Chinese Paladin. Thanks, Jabba. We sometimes have invulnerable paladins that you can never kill, and of course, that's not fun. So I don't hate the Divine Shield nerf to 10 seconds across the board, and then the cooldown being lower, obviously, to accommodate that. And the health regeneration per second is an interesting way to compensate for that, and I don't totally hate that. I don't know if those numbers are the best. You'd probably have to maybe tinker with that a little bit because like if you put it too high, then it's effectively like like the TC Ultimate. You're coming back with the hero with full life. I mean, it's only 550, so I guess it's not full life, because you'd be level anywhere from 5 to 7 when you get it, more than likely. The level 3 Divine Shield, but that's still a lot of life. I don't know if we would have to tinker with that number, but I don't hate that proposal for ladder and as far as cancer on the ladder, because again, 10 seconds of Divine Shield is manageable. 35 seconds of Divine Shield means that that guy is just sitting there doing whatever he wants. And then again, also as a third hero in a standard army, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The MK base strength, I don't hate it. I don't know if it would change anything, but I don't hate it. Sundering Blades by default, I hate. Again, something that both Neo and Remo have talked about from different points of view is that ghouls are too strong. Neo at least has talked about trying to bring back fiends. Remo didn't really talk about that, but Neo has wanted fiends to come back. If you give Sunring Blades by default and you move Animal War Training to tier 2, there's going to be much less of an opportunity for, in this case, I would say even fiends, but ghouls too. But for certain units to be able to hit a tier 3 timing, you're closing up that tier 3 timing. I don't know if this is too big of a change. It probably is, honestly, but maybe I'm overthinking it just as from the undead point of view, because it's usually the tier 3 undead timing if you're on one base and the human is like two basing it, for example. But yeah, that's a big change, and I'm not too sure about it, but it would definitely, circling back to Neo, kind of shut down the idea of increased fiend play. And then you're also got to consider that there's going to be changes to the ghoul and other units, which would then thereby make the knight stronger inherently. So now you're giving it kind of like a double buff. Militia duration, I don't hate it. The call to arms range, I kind of understand as well. It gets really clunky. Everyone's had the time where you like shift click it, and then a few don't come, and you're trying to figure out why. Maybe this helps a little bit with that, and also just getting things out quicker. The militia duration, every second does count. Especially if we're trying to get back to an expo type of play for human, as Remo is indicating. I think at a normal level, that just means a few more seconds of you fighting militia as opposed to them being peasants. So I don't hate that change. Maybe I will when I see it, and maybe it should be somewhere in the middle, but I don't hate that. The improved AI to the priests, so it only heals units that are missing 25 HP. I can't really disagree with that one. I mean, priests burn a lot of mana just because of things like Disease Cloud, which ticks away slowly. The heal range also, I'd have to see it, but I don't really see a problem with that. Polymorph duration. I don't know why we're changing it. I guess he switched the duration. I don't remember what he said with this. I guess he switched the duration because he's also thinking of switching the mana cost because the mana cost is too much. We don't really see polymorph. So it'd be now 8 seconds on units and 2 seconds on heroes. The 2 seconds on heroes is a little bit more. I don't exactly love it, but we haven't really seen it in play, so I can't see if I'm going to hate it or not because it rarely happens. All I know is I hate Hex, so I'm already at that point. But the 30% healing reduction, I feel like Remo slapped that on a lot of things, and I don't know how that would play into things, honestly. It'd be one of those things I'd have to see. I can't imagine, again, your whole army is going to get polymorph, so it wouldn't be too impactful unless you're trying to like heal your hero or unit at the last second and you polymorphs it, or if it's just polymorphed. Collision size, I saw a few people making a big deal out of that. I think in things like human versus human, that might definitely play a role, or even human versus night elf if they are trying to put more spellbreakers in the front. Um, every size does matter. I would leave that to the humans. I'm not really sure if I like that change or not. Obviously, it would be beneficial to everyone that doesn't want to play spellbreakers or verse spellbreakers. It would also encourage people to go knights more in mirror. That one's kind of iffy. I'm not too sure about that. I understand the argument about the um, expoing be a little bit harder for human. If this also helps encourage it, then I don't really mind the resource cost reduction. I don't think it changes that much. Obviously, they can quick build, which does change things because there's an extra cost and things of that nature. But um, I mean, if right now expoing is kind of hard, then so be it. Although I do think the militia change is a good start already. So I don't know if like adding everything together, it might just get too imbalanced because we all got to remember the old meme about human used to be the first like tier one was pain for human, but if you get your expo up and you can solidify it, you're in good shape. So you don't want to make it too easy for the human. The orb, I don't exactly mind reducing it by 25. I mean, I think you try to make every single one 300. I don't exactly love that because I do think some orbs are stronger than other orbs and more important. And I don't think it should just be that everyone gets an orb. Plus, some orbs stack and some orbs don't. So I don't think it's better to make them all cheaper. Also, giving an extra 30 extra damage to spell immune units. This once again goes back to basically killing spellbreakers, which I know, humans don't want just spellbreaker mirrors, but if you're going to kill the spellbreaker mirror altogether, then you're just going to have nightmares. So I don't know if that's the best thing in the world. I'm not exactly sold on that. It would also affect dryads. It would also affect destroyers. It would affect quite a bit. I'm not sure if that's too much damage. Maybe an extra little bit of damage wouldn't be bad, but 30 is quite a lot. For Orc, only 2 viable first heroes. BM is strong enough in the late game. They're the only race that can't expand on tier 1. That's probably a good thing, frankly. 2 weak versus undead and 2 strong versus human right now. I disagree. I'm going to speak at least for the undead portion. I didn't look up the human. But versus undead, what he should be saying is, and he should specify, happy is too strong, and 120 is too strong versus orc. Because at the 2200 plus MMR system, and this is not a perfect way to do it, but if you look up the stats on W3C, I believe it's in the 49 percentile for undead winning. Now, of course, this is not a good way to look at things. It's not a perfect way to look at things because let's say I was 2,201 MMR and I got matched versus Hitman. Hitman's going to kill me. Hitman's going to beat me. I've been close to 2,200. So let's say I snuck right over that. Well, Hitman's going to beat me, and that's going to count as a loss for the undeads. Is that really a fair matchup? He's 500 MMR better than me. No, it's not. So I don't have the stats, but I don't really hear any orcs complaining that they're too weak versus undead. Of course, they're going to complain about certain things, just like undeads complain about certain things about orcs. So I disagree with the premise just from the start. I think it's better to say that certain orcs are weak against the certain undeads in the top 12 players or whatever it may be. Heroes, Bladestorm mana 200 to 100. I hate it. I don't. You don't see Bladestorm at the highest level. You don't. But anyone who's had the fortune of playing someone like Woodywood, the best example, you don't get to play him anymore. But anyone who has played someone like Woodywood knows how cancerous it is to play versus a solo hero like Blade Master with mass towers, which he talks about towers later. And his whole idea is basically to harass you into level 6 and then kill you with Bladestorm slowly but surely. Bladestorm already has a very relatively short cooldown, and now you're going to lower the mana cost as well. So I don't like it just from a ladder perspective. I don't think that's needed, especially with the other suggestions you are suggesting. Serpent Ward damage, 14 to 16 to 17 to 19. I don't. It's not. It doesn't impact undead. I don't think it's really going to impact versus human. I think we're going to see more tower rushes and things like that versus Night Elf. I think versus Night Elves in general, they're going to be mad about that change. That is quite a bit more damage. The Serpent Ward is pretty easily spammable, so I'm not too sure if that's too strong on the ladder. I've seen a few orcs even say that, oh well, tower rushing is back on the menu. Chain Lightning, the change to the Chain Lightning, I don't hate it. Farseer sucks late game, so more damage. Although I don't know, versus human, TC Farseer can get kind of extreme with the Chain Lightning, Shockwave, or Stomps and stuff. So I don't know the breakpoints, so you got to always be careful about that. But I do understand Farseer sucks late game in most matchups. Feral Spirit mana, again, a little bit of a reduction. I'd have to see it to know whether it's completely horrible or if it's too good. It's one of those things where Farseer is really annoying early already, so I don't know if allowing them to be more annoying early is necessarily a good thing, right? Like it's just more spammable now. I rarely see the wolves running out on a harass, but finally when the wolves do run out on a harass, you're like, thank God, I have a little bit of breathing room. So this just means a little bit less breathing room. I don't know if that's justified or not. Then the Farsight targetable on friendly units and heroes. When used on a friendly unit, it grants the ally mana, and when not used on an ally, the mana is granted to the Farseer. Farsight sucks. I'd be fine with trying to suggest changes to it. That's not the worst suggestion in the world, to be honest. I just don't know where it becomes broken and where it becomes just useless again as well. Because again, Feral Spirit and Chain Lightning are both good spells, so I don't know. I guess maybe the idea is maybe you can use Farseer as a second or third hero then and just spam that. But wouldn't be. I wouldn't mind trying that one out. The TC, again, fine. Again, that might be too strong for specifically human. I don't know. I'll leave that to the human players, but I wouldn't hate trying it out just because SH really has seemed to take the place of TC in most matchups as a secondary hero for sure. Units, the burning oil, full damage. I mean, he showed the video where it wasn't doing full damage. Honestly, I never see burning oil, so I might complain about it once I do see it, if I ever do see it, but I wouldn't hate the change to it. I don't see it unless I don't see I don't see that unit ever unless I'm tower rushing an orc. So, and you don't really see it in many matchups anyway. Pulverize upgrade. I don't like the fact that he is reducing the wood cost of it. I don't know if even orcs would like that, because one of the things that you were seeing on the ladder at many MMRs is you either tower rush in orc versus orc, HH tower rush, or you go to tier 3, you try and get more TC, or excuse me, more Tauren than the other side. So now we're encouraging more tier 3 play, which not always a problem, but with all the other added changes, may cause some problems. I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing, especially since Torn are already super strong. Why are we making them stronger? I'm not sure if this is a good change, and one of the people that may hate it most is Orcs, because Orc versus Orc sees, I think, more Torn than any other matchup, but Torn are now used in like every matchup. You see them quite a bit. Um, so I don't know if we need to encourage their use even more. This change is what also makes a lot of other changes seem very stupid to me. Removing Sentry Ward ability and replacing it with Status Trap. Status Trap now also grants detection and has vision. I don't like this. Again, we need to remember wards are not dispellable, so you can't dispel these wards. And now we're going to get rid of Sentry Wards, just make it a Status Trap. So Witch Doctor does have more viability when it first comes out. I get it. They're not too viable right at the beginning. But then Healing Ward is now available basically at tier 2. So now you get mass healing at tier 2. That might just in itself be too strong. Okay. But let's just move to the next one. Because right there, some people might be like, that's insane. But now you get mana totems as well. So now at tier 3, you can spam Torn with maybe better Pulverize and Witch Doctors. And your Witch Doctors are going to be able to heal everything at tier 2 with healing wards and at tier 3. And at the same time, you're going to be able to spam mana totems, right? Which give mana. Which is, it's not a lot of mana, but every little bit of mana counts when you're considering it's not dispellable. So a player has to sit there and literally click on every single ward that is spammed, right, to get rid of it now. Or use things like Pit Lord or whatever, the Cleave, yada, yada, yada. But it's a pain in the butt to get rid of. And now you're giving everything more mana, including the Blade Master, which before you said, oh, let's lower the Blade Storm mana, including the FS, which is already going to be using to give other things more mana. And then the Witch Doctors are also going to get more mana to then spam more spells. So it's going to be like a never-ending spam of wards if you get a decent amount of Witch Doctors. It's pretty strong. I've seen people play with Witch Doctors. They're not bad. Obviously, they're still a niche unit. People don't really use them, so I understand trying to make them played more. But again, I'm thinking from the non-pro point of view, and this feels insane. It's gonna both in fights and out of fights make Orc way too strong late game when Orc already is too strong late game. Orc already is far and above the best race late game. Lightning Shield mana costs 180. That's only going to impact like certain matchups, like maybe if you're trying to use it versus like, I don't know, Night Elf or versus Human. You don't see it that much versus Undead. I'd have to see it in practice to know whether or not I hate it or if it's warranted. So that one could slide by. Building items and upgrades. Again, he's trying to make it so that Orc expansions are more viable. Again, Orc has the strongest units. Okay, Human does too, but they're harder to get to. Orc overall, I would say, has the strongest units in the game. So I don't think it's necessarily good that they get easy expos, but their expo's still not easy even with these changes. So we could try it. I don't know if the build time reduction is too much, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Maybe it is, and then it would just be reverted right back. I don't know why we're decreasing the spikes research time. Spikes are already super good. And then the damage increase to burrows also seems crazy. I don't like Orcs. I don't think Orcs really have to worry about getting cheese. I think this only makes them more secure. And then we're also talking about lowering things like the resource costs and build time on the Great Hall, which just increases the viability of an expo when it should be probably the hardest for an orc to get an expo because it can be pretty abusive if you don't kill it. And then gold costs 375 down to 300 on the orb. I'm not a fan of that. I think orc orbs are super strong. We always joke as the undeads, if you have a statue or a destroyer or a worm, it's going to get hit by that orb and it's never going to move. So making them more viable to buy, again, you're making orc tier 3 even stronger when orc tier 3 is already where they shine. So I don't know why we're making it stronger. So troll healing available tier 1. I wouldn't hate trying that. But I think with everything else, like getting an early expo, if early expos became a thing, that might get really cancerous really quick. Just all in with just mass HH from the very beginning. It'd be like, you know, I mean, there's not a really good example. I guess the closest example would be like an undead getting early expo and then going 80 food ghouls, but then getting the frenzy upgrade at tier 3. But instead, they're frenzy upgrades on tier 1. So, like, that could happen because HH are already super good units, right? Like, it used to be spammed and it can still be spammed. So, you got to be careful about that. I don't mind that it would apply to the Shadow Hunter. That's not a bad change because Shadow Hunter is squishy and that's not going to be the biggest change in the world. For undead, 2 of the heroes are way weaker than the others in comparison. Maybe at the top level, I disagree at the lower level. Frenzy ghouls plus destroyers are too strong at the early tier 3 stage. They greatly limit what the opposition can do. This is most intensely felt by orcs and night elves. Frenzy ghouls and destroyers are strong. That's true. But are they too strong? I don't know. I don't think night elves are dying to tier 3 timings nearly as much as they used to be. So, and then versus orcs at the pro level, yeah, they're dying to it, but I don't think so. Not like I said, right now it's 49%, 49 point something percent win rate where orcs are favored. Again, that's not the best way to indicator because it's 2200 and above. So it's still like this is what we can go off of. I've never heard orcs really complain about that. And you know what? Something I totally forgot about, which was not addressed with the orcs, which I think most people, because no one's going to complain about human. Actually, they are going to complain about human. So I'll give you 2 things that were not addressed previously, and I should just go back to them. Why, in the units, why aren't griffins addressed? I get it. At the top level, you don't see that many griffins comparatively. But if you ask any orc player or any undead player, what unit right now do they kind of hate the most of the whole human army? It's griffins. Why? Because they're super strong. Orcs don't really have a good way of getting rid of them when they have armor upgrades. You know, you can't just blow them up, right? And then undeads feel like, well, how do I kill them with a ground army? It's super hard, right? It's usually don't let them get a lot of griffins. That's the answer. It's a pretty bad answer, right? So what do undeads have to do? They have to get things like anti-magic shield, curse, yada 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 to try and deal with it. Orcs kind of have to just kill them before there's too many of them, and then the bats don't really do enough because there's too much armor between that, the paladin, and scrolls of protection, and yada yada yada. So honestly, if you're gonna buff other units for the human, why not nerf the griffin a little bit? So it would also make things for like undead when they, and Remo didn't change it here, but in the past where they changed things like anti-magic shield, if they change that in the future, a lot of undeads go, great, I'm just going to die to griffins now, right? Like, because that's the worry usually, the griffin, right? Like they're like, great, I'm screwed. So if you were to nerf the griffins a little bit, whether it's in health or damage or whatever it may be, or maybe in the cost, I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's a cancer unit for human. I think that also solves a lot of issues that people have with other races where it doesn't then make it lopsided if you try and switch that. Now for orc, because I forgot to say this, I didn't keep any notes. What is the one thing that everyone complains about that is not a pro? Mirror image for the blade. The Blade Master with mirror image is cancer. It's super strong. It's easily spammable. Gets them out of everything. I think Neo talked about this as well. Um, I think even a lot of orcs, at least I'm going to call them the proper orcs, the Carsons of the world, who they like their old school type of way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They give me the most trouble actually. But mirror image is just like a get out of free jail card. It's get out of jail free card. Then it's also just too strong. It's just too easily spammable. That's got to be changed. At least I think that would make everyone extremely happy if that got changed. So now going back to undead, since this is where I got triggered to remember all that stuff. Again, it says favored against human. That is true at the 2200 level. I will say that. According to the statistics, at least, it is true. And orc, again, I disagree with that. Possibly also slightly against elf. That's changed a lot, I feel like. I personally think elf is impossible to deal with. The numbers seem to show it's pretty even, though. Heroes. I don't think... I'm a CL user, okay? I don't think CL needs these buffs. Reducing the mana on the beetles would just allow me to use Impale more, which I would love, right? But I don't think it's needed, to be honest. And then making webbed, entangled, and ensnared units targetable by Impale. Again, I like the fact that I mean I guess that's a good counter then to Griffins now, right? So that would be one way to deal with Griffins. Not really, but it would help first Griffins. But and it would also make CL not so abused by Griffins. But I don't think it's necessary. I think it's good when a hero has a weakness. So I'm not a fan of all that, to be honest. And again, I've been playing more and more CL. Locust Swarm cooldown. I don't know if that's needed. I mean, I know we don't see Locust Swarm that much, but I don't know if it's needed, to be honest. Making Dreadlord an agility hero. So first, we're switching the swarm damage. Well, first you're making an agility hero, which has its own issues or benefits. But I don't know what he means exactly by that. Like, what would be the gains exactly? I guess it would just do more damage in general, but I would have to see that. But then there's the swarm change. I don't know what the 190, the 200 to the 190 would change breakpoint wise. So I'm not sure about that, but if it doesn't really change that much, I wouldn't be too opposed. But I'm not sure what that was targeting. I didn't catch that. The sleep mana. I don't. I'm one of the undeads that when I do go Dreadlord, I will get higher level sleeps because I do like less mana. It costs less mana. I think you have to be careful that sleep abuse is super strong. Like the pros will be able to get rid of the sleep quicker, right? But as you go down the ladder, sleep gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So making it cost less and less mana is always a scary thing. I don't think I'm a fan of that. And also making it target allies. First off, I can already see 4v4. Every undead that hates their teammate sleeping their allies, and then W3C has a new issue to deal with. That's the first thing. The second thing would be it's an interesting idea, but I don't know if I like that. I mean, I get it. I would have to see it. It could be do absolutely nothing, but it could also be too strong. I'm not sure about that. Infernal duration reduced to 120 instead of 180. So right now, you smash down an infernal, you can put down another infernal right after that one is done, basically. So I do get it. It is weird that there's no like cooldown time in between. I don't hate that, to be honest. But Dreadlord also is like the least used hero, so I get it. You got to buff other things you got to make it better so that it's actually used. But then if the Infernal's too strong, so I'm kind of picking at each one separately. So maybe as a whole, I kind of get it. Replace Vampiric Aura with Vampiric Touch. It's a passive ability that grants the Dreadlord a certain amount of lifesteal. And at night, it grants more damage and flat movement speed. We're going Dota. I don't hate it. I mean, I kind of like it's a crazy idea, so I don't hate it because I kind of like crazy ideas sometimes. But that might just be too strong. Like, let's be real. We've all seen. Okay, anyone who's watched Dota knows that when it's nighttime and that DL is around the map, sometimes you're just like, "Yo, everyone get together because you're about to get ganked and you're dead." So that's my first flashback right there to situations like that. So I would be super scared of that. Although it is again just one hero while you have many units, hopefully. Um, but it would also allow Swarm to be able to be used more because you're going to be moving quicker and you're going to be able to get into position better. Um, I don't hate the change. I just don't know if it's necessary, to be honest. And finally, capping the max amount of mana gain per ritual usage. I don't hate it. I don't. I don't think it's going to change too much. And I didn't mention that about the Blade Master. That was something I did skip. He also, now that I think about it, was one of the few things I did skip. He introduced a critical strike damage cap, which okay. Um, I don't think that's going to kill anything. I think that's okay. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how often those numbers go over what he has listed. Like right now, does critical strike go over those numbers? So I'd have to see that. That might be too big of a change. It might be okay. That's why I forgot to mention earlier. I'm not sure about that one. But going back to this, same thing with this, doing a cap. I don't hate it. Lich does sometimes have infinite, unlimited mana. So, uh, yeah, whatever. We can try that. If it gets too bad, then you revert it. I don't know why we're making destroyers worse than they already are. And I say that as an undead who hates making destroyers. I get it; they're strong when they have mana, but this isn't about having mana. This is just the base damage. Ghoul Frenzy attack speed. I don't know. I mean, you're not giving the undead anything in return, right? Like it again. This is just going off what Remo said. So we're just going to nerf the ghouls and say, all right, at tier 3, we're going to nerf the ghouls and just say, all right, have fun. So now fiends aren't as good, but we're going to make ghouls worse. We're also going to give um, like orc and human more things to do quicker at tier 3. That's a lot of changes all in one. So I'm not exactly sure. Again, I love that. I don't think that would be good. I think everyone else will think that's good. That's not an undead, but that's my point. Give Cripple the additional effect of 30% healing reduction? No. Bad. Cripple's super strong right now. I love Cripple. Anyone who's played me on the ladder knows I use it in several different matchups. It's super strong, and it's kind of slept on. So don't give it more benefits. I also don't think that's a good benefit. So it's kind of like you're giving it more benefits that I don't. I mean, it's a good benefit in certain circumstances for the healing, but I don't think it makes like. I think he said maybe you'll see it more in Undead versus Undead. No, you won't because Cripple is a tier 3 spell, which means Destroyers will also be out at tier 3, and Destroyers will still kill Necros no matter what. That's the counter to it. So having the healing reduction is not going to change that to be able to be used more there. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but they'd really only be used at tier 2, not tier 3. Improve AI so that statues only heal allies that are missing at least 10 HP. Again, I don't hate that. Excluding Destroyers from Spirit Touch, honestly, I didn't even know Destroyers were included in Spirit Touch. I probably should have, but I didn't. So that makes sense. There's all those little small things you don't really notice. Again, this also makes sense. Just you're just it's the same idea as the priest. You won't lose as much mana. I think some people would hate that, obviously, but it makes sense. The resource cost reduction, I don't know if that's. I don't think that's going to change anything. I think if you really wanted to make it so that expos are easier, you switch the amount of time it goes up, because I can't tell you the amount of times that my expo has been delayed by 5 seconds or something like that. Or excuse me, my expo has been canceled by 5 seconds. Like I have 5 seconds left, and then it's canceled from almost full life to just someone coming in and killing it, because it's super easy to kill during that time. So maybe a reduction in the amount of time it takes to make it would be better. I don't think the cost changes anything. It certainly doesn't really change much math at all. Maybe like a second or two, because by that point you're going to have like 3 ghouls on. You just click back for the extra 10 wood, or like wait 1 second, you get the gold. The gold cost for the orb, again, I'm an undead. I don't like it. If you make everything too cheap at tier 3, um, it's going to make your tier 3 push maybe a little bit quicker, but probably not, because you're still waiting for upgrades like Ghoul Frenzy and all that anyway, and the Destroyer upgrade and yada yada yada. But this is a super strong orb. I don't think it should be less gold, to be honest. It's not stackable like the other ones, so it doesn't have that issue, but it's still super strong. Current Night Elf issues, you guys already know about all these. I don't need to go through. Let's just look right at it. I don't hate increasing Keeper of the Grove. It can be super strong at the beginning, but I don't think these changes really change it that much. Maybe I'll be wrong. There was, some times where Keeper of the Groove was way too abusive, but yeah, it's not a bad change. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. When it comes to these small numbers, I look at it and go, it's worth a shot. But maybe it could be too strong. I don't know. Remove mana burn and replace it with another ability. I mean, I would like that. Or range 300 to 200, or mana cost 50, 65, 80. Mana burn is cancer. It's, as everyone says, it's not fun. I would love a change to mana burn, but we've all dealt with mana burn for the last 20 years. I hate it. I do think it should be gone, but I don't think it ever will be gone. I don't think it will ever be changed, because if you change it in too many ways, it just becomes ineffective, and it's not good for the Night Elf either. So, I mean, I've personally thought that maybe the range of the mana burn should go up over time, so that, like when they're level 1 and they're harassing you and they're mana burning you, again, like they always say, well, I got to run really close and then I might die. Well, no, you're not at level 1, unless the person has sleep or like, I don't know, entangle. But like, if it's just the normal heroes, usually you're not getting surrounded. It's kind of like a hype moment when you do get surrounded. It's not that common. And you can just keep doing that if you're good at it. You can just keep mana burning someone, and they're going to have no mana by level 1. So that kind of sucks. So I always said maybe increase the range of it over time, but I think all the changes are kind of insane. I think what needs to be dealt with, which not discussed here, is immolation. The real problem with Demon Hunter came when it was possible for the Demon Hunter to both mana burn and have immolation, or have immolation. Immolation is super strong. It allows for way too many things, whether it's creeping, denying expos, which Remo seems to really want. So again, it's super strong versus things like expos. It's super strong in the case of just creeping. It's super strong just in general. Like, you really want to surround a hero, right? Like, that's the whole idea. What are you going to do to get rid of a demon hunter early game? You got to surround it as an undead or as a human, right? Oh, well, as soon as you surround him, he's going to turn on something that's going to slowly leech away his mana, but do damage to all your units. And then he's going to TP out, get mana, and come back. This is going to be the same issue that's going to be with the Warden that I'm going to be talking about. And I understand maybe at the pro level, they're better at abusing the lack of moon juice, but at a normal level, that can become very abusive. Turning to the Priestess of the Moon, Searing Arrow, he said, sucks as a spell. I disagree. I think Searing Arrow is an amazing spell right now. It does a fuck ton of damage if you've ever been hit by it. I don't think it needs to be changed, to be honest. I really don't. And I think the ones who are going to hate this most are Night Elves. Because not only with these changes, but with changing potentially Demon Hunter, and also the changes to the hunts, you are encouraging a Priestess of the Moon hunt meta again. And at least half the Night Elves will hate that, the ones that like their Demon Hunter play, as opposed to the ones who really love the Hunt Priestess of the Moon play. Plus, again, Searing Arrow is not the problem. It's already a very, very strong spell. The real problem is Priestess of the Moon gets blown up in 5 seconds. It's just very finicky. It's easy to kill. So it's not like, like if a Priestess of the Moon is sitting there hitting you with that spell over and over, you will die. The real problem is being able to do it over and over. Replacing Scout with a new ability. It's basically an owl that's no longer spell immune or invul. 10 seconds, the owl possesses the light of the Loon aura, which regens health. I don't really like it. I mean, I don't know. Does it also give sight? Because if it also gives sight, then it's still being used as for scouting purposes. I mean, 10 seconds isn't that long, to be honest, so I guess it can't be that. But you can still use it to scout, like, to send it out. But it won't be able to, like, track people forever. So that's gone. But now it gives health regen. I'm not really a fan of that. I don't know if does Night Elf need more health regen in a fight when they can also already staff back, use Moonwells, and staff back in, right? I don't know. That might be way too strong. I'm not exactly a fan of it. I'm not sure what to do with Priest of the Moon. A lot of me is criticizing, not suggesting. So I don't think that would be good for ladder, especially then again, in team games. Now the Warden. I think Warden is broken. I already think Warden is broken, personally. Versus Undead, there are certain Warden players out there who have amazing stats with Warden, and I get it. They do it a lot, but specifically versus Undead. Increasing Shadow Strike dot from 10, 30, 45 to 15, 30, 45. So that's 5. So it's the same amount of damage, right? So that still adds up over time. I don't know. No. I'm not sure about this. I would have to see it. But truthfully, I'm not too sure, but I do think the extra 5 damage at level 1 is a little bit insane. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, because he does says same amount of damage, but it doesn't look like the same amount of damage to me. Maybe just level 1 is different. But on level 1, right now, some Wardens can, especially, or level 2 really, because like let's say on Northern Isles, they get a mana pot or a mana item from the first orange creep, that the AOW creep. They can kill your hero at level 1 or level 2, whatever it is, just by following it and keep shadow striking it. And what are you going to do? You're going to try and surround the Warden. Well, what can he do? He can blink out of it, and then you're never going to catch it again. And then just keep shadow striking you. Do we want to make that stronger? It's already pretty strong. The Fan of Knives target cap, increasing it. Again, Fan of Knives late game is already very strong. He is increasing the damage cap. Decreasing, the damage cap at level 3. I don't know how much that off puts it. It's a little, it's scary. And then he wants to remove Invul, the Spirits of Vengeance, and replace it with spell immunity. Again, that's making the Warden weaker late game, which I don't hate, because again, I think Warden is broken, but I think some of the benefits it's getting from the other things may make it too strong. My suggestion has always been for the Warden, make Blink a longer cooldown, especially late game. Blink is ridiculous late game. They can blink in, they can blink out, they can do as much damage as they want, and you can't really catch them on some maps and in certain matchups with certain heroes. There's nothing you can do. And it's just ridiculous. What's the solution? Tower rush the Night Elf, or do something very early versus the Night Elf, or else you lose. And it's not because of vengeance necessarily. It's because Fan of Knives, Blink, maybe Shadow Strike, depending on the situation. So what I've always said is make the Warden, it can still be strong, but it shouldn't be able to just blink into your backlines, do whatever it wants to blink back out. Maybe it should once you use an invul pot. But if you make the blink cooldown long enough, it makes the Warden player go from a Dota hero to being just a frontline fighter, maybe, that's throwing out its spells, and then as soon as it's aimed, it blinks to the back of its army, maybe gets its redruve, and then circles back to the front and does it again instead of just blinking everywhere and being a cancer hero. Again, I'm thinking on a ladder level, not a pro level. I'm taking way too long, so I'm going to go really quick with this. I don't know about this. Again, Fairy Fire, it's a good spell. They're reducing the amount. I don't hate that, but I don't think the 30% healing reduction really does much. I think maybe only Night Elf versus Night Elf may hate this because now their mana, Moon Juice goes nowhere, right? Like, you got healing, you got Fairy Fire on you and Night Elf versus Night Elf, and now Moon Juice. Oh, 30% less effective. I don't know how much play it would see. I mean, in Undead, it's already seen play, so maybe that helps with the statues, but I don't really know about that change. I don't hate the Vorpal blade change because I never see them anyway. Gold costs reduced by 15. You only really see those versus Undead in, it feels like, at least in the Undead matchup where the Undead's getting like Maskargs or something. Hippos in large numbers are already very strong, but obviously the downside of that is you can't do anything with them if the person transitions. So I don't hate it. I think the only thing I'd be careful about is that um, you know now you can mount an archer on it and it's cheaper. So you don't. Again, this is Night Elf versus Night Elf. I don't know where that tipping point is where it becomes like cancer, if that makes sense, right? Like you always see these cancerous builds and changes. So I don't know. Does that change anything? Switch attack upgrade from Strength of Wild to Strength of the Moon. I don't know how much that changes because poison is really what you love with the Dryad anyway. So I don't think that's too big of a change. It is kind of weird, just because of all the animals had one training in Night Elf and all the Night Elves have a different training. So I don't know if that makes sense. Glaive bounce damage reduction 50 to 40% and reverse the bounce building interaction, and then reduce Moonglaive cost. Again, this is what I was going to, where I think it'll probably impact Orc versus Orc, maybe, um, which is always scary. But then also, again, Night Elf versus Night Elf. I feel like the Night Elves are already trying to avoid the other Night Elves on ladder. I see more draws in Night Elf versus Night Elf than anything else. You're bringing back a Night Elf Hunt versus Hunt mirror. Resistant skin research time 75 to 90. I don't know why. I don't see any MGs really, so I don't know if that really changes anything, to be honest. The Wand of Negation, I think, is only because he's thinking now Dryads maybe not be in the meta with this change. If that's true, then I guess that would be viable. Gold cost, again, I don't think this should go down because right now, especially this orb, it's very stackable. So if you can get 3 of them quicker, you're doing more damage. I don't think that's a good thing. Bonus damage 4 to 5, I don't really hate it because, again, this is like, how often do you see it? Well, let's start with this one. Reducing the cost of it, I don't know. Night Elves have been trying to expo more and more recently, I feel like, and they've been having a little bit more success. I don't know if it's better to encourage it, but I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. Unless, and I would have to see it, how it goes with like being the first building, right? Some races can counter that easier than others. We're already seeing like springtime. I'm going to refer to Carson on this. I've seen Night Elves do the build where they just take the free expo in the middle, and it's pretty hard to stop. So if you're making that easier, you got to be careful about that. Reducing the cost of this, I don't know about it. I really don't. I'd have to see it in practice. I'll withhold on that one. Move this upgrade for Ultravision to be research at Tree of Life. Still, I mean, I guess that's again just trying to encourage them not to go Hunter's Hall so that then you don't just get Dryad Bear. So I wouldn't hate that. Running really quickly through this because I'm already at 54 minutes. Make Quilby spell immune. That's insane. I personally hate this. I think that just is crazy. You should be able to dispel whatever the summon is. It might not do all. It might not fully dispel it depending on what you're using, but I think spell. I don't like the idea of being immune to dispel. even with a reduction in HP. Now, replacing the Summon Hawk with a new ability, Death from Above, I'm willing to try it out. Hawks aren't used that often, but they are actually super strong. It's just the hero in general is not used that often. And maybe with the armor change, maybe it'll be used more often. But if people would rather this, sure. But I do think having 60 damage, 100 damage, 140 damage for only 20 mana is quite a lot, right? That's quite a lot of damage for just 20 mana. So I don't know if we would have to switch with the numbers and for damage and mana and stuff like that. And many stunning targets is a little bit crazy, but it would be one of those things that's so hard to imagine. I'd have to see it. Acid Bomb, well, the Alchemist in general, Acid Bomb armor damage reduction, whatever. We can try it. Chemical Rage duration. I mean, honestly, like I never see this hero except from Kos or in like Night Elf Mass Tier 1 versus Orc, which is kind of already not seeing that much play. So I wouldn't, I'd be willing to see some differences. This might be totally broken though. I don't know. This is one of those things where I'd have to see it. Life Drain, Damage Tick. I'm fine with trying to switch it a little bit. I don't know if the numbers are good, but I'm fine with trying to switch it to see it back into the meta a little bit. It's not, I don't think it was cancerous people made it out to be. I think Firelord is actually super strong tier 1, so I don't know if reducing the mana cost is a good idea, but I'm willing to try it. Soulburn cooldown, again, I have to see it. Pocket Factory, I think this hero is cancer, so, and I do use it as a third hero versus Night Elf, so uh, I build the cancer. I'm not sure about that. That is quite a lot of life. Maybe the life has to be changed with a little bit. Maybe that's the good numbers. I'm not sure. The Pit Lord attack range. I don't think we need that. Pit Lord's super strong. I want the Pit Lord weak tier level 1, level 2, level 3. And then, level 3 is when it kicks in, really. So I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing on the cleave aspect. Rain of Fire mana cost, that's fine, because if you're using Rain of Fire, it's usually because he's a third hero and you're going to be trying to, like break an expo or something like that, or he's a second hero and you might use it for creeping or whatever. So I don't necessarily hate that. And Howl Terror mana cost, I don't think it really matters that much. I don't think if you're like a cleave Howl Terror, that's okay. If you're Rain of Fire and Howl Terror, then having the reduction in mana cost is also good because Pillar doesn't have that much mana. The Mana Shield, Mana Sec regeneration when active. I don't. We could try it. It's not really ever used by a Naga. I don't think that would break anything at a lower level. I think bringing back the old Panda, I kind of like the Panda where it is, and of course, everyone's going to say you're a Garg abuser, but I don't know. I think Panda was super strong before. I think you just bring back to the Panda way it was, and everyone's just going to go Panda anyway. So yeah, and I also, making it so that Drunken Haze duration is longer, so that then you can do more Breaths of Fire. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. That doesn't really go to skill, in my opinion. That just means everyone gets 2 free ones, which may be too much damage, to be honest. I'm really not, especially with the damage buff that you're talking about, potentially, or the change with the old Breath of Fire. But I have to see it in practice. This is crazy. The Tower Kill XP, punish 100% to 50%. You can't do this. People like the Woody Wood style would just become all the more abusive. Burrows, which would now do more damage, would also be able to give XP. Night Elves, now they're punished a little bit, but not nearly as hard as they were before when they denied a creep. But it should be that way. Same with, like Undead, if they, God forbid, ever somehow got towers underneath a creep. But this doesn't just go to creeps, this also goes to units. So a person massing towers and you run at the towers, at least you knew if the tower killed your unit, or the burrow killed your unit, or the tree killed your unit, and sometimes you use that as a deny. I use it to deny things. I would purposely run it at something if I saw like a hero chasing it to get it to die. Why? Because I don't want the unit to give the person XP, but now you're giving them XP. I don't think that's a good thing. I think it was good that the towers stay in the base and they can't give XP. because it also encouraged people to build other things than towers. Because if all you build is towers, well, you're going to still, if you're a Blade Master player at tier 3, you're still getting a buff to the amount of XP you get if you're only going one hero. So it's not really a 50% reduction. So I don't like that. The priest stock delay, I don't know. I'd have to see it. That goes back to like human getting a better expo too. So I don't know. There's a lot of changes for the human. I'm not sure about that. Remove vitality, potion of invis, and scroll of protection. Replaced with greater clarity potion, scroll of mana, orb of fire. That's a lot. Again, this is bringing a lot of mana into the game. I'm not really sure about that. I would be very scared about that. I think mana scarcity is a good way of looking at the game sometimes, of being like, oh, this is my opportunity. Why? Because he drained all his mana. Now it's just like, just kidding. I just bought the item when you weren't looking, and now I have enough mana on my spellcasters or whatever it is. So I don't think that's a good thing. Like again, like night elves would be able to just buy that because their moon wells use more of the moon juice for mana than they do for health. So you can just use the scroll, cost some gold, of course, but now he has better expo, and do it that way. So I don't know if that's a good thing. Clarity potions, yeah, why not? You can make it more. I don't think that would change much. Increasing the mana capacity, sure. Mana restored, I don't know. I think getting more and more mana is always a bad thing. But I do think it is weird that this is like, I don't know. Mana Stone and Health Stone I think are too strong sometimes. So yeah, I'm not sure. Hit points 150 to 175. I feel like those are stackable in some matchups, like free for all, I should say. So gotta be careful about that, so the heroes just don't become really unkillable. But we could give it a try. People don't buy it anyway from the tavern, but the worry is though that like unless he removed it or they removed it, but like the tavern, if you could just start buying those to stack them up, can be a little bit scary. But that would be ultra late game. And yeah, damage per second 10 to 12. That item sucks right now, so why not? I'm not even going to go into this. I think this just brings in too much. A little bit might be good, a little bit might be bad. I'm not going to go through each one. I like that there's randomness in Warcraft 3, but I don't want too much randomness, if that makes sense, right? And you want to make sure you don't add too many things, especially things like Tome of XP on top of everything else. Uh, you know, there's just so many things, and when you make it so some of them are so specialized, like longbows or mini rune bracers, you're going to be super happy when you get the rune bracers versus undead. But then if you get it versus orc, you're just like, yeah, I'm selling that, right? So like if there's a bigger chance of different items at each creep, then there's less logic of going to that creep. People are thinking sometimes of what items they can get there. If there's more different items, and you might be able to get a mini rune bracers there, as a like I don't know, like mini orb of corruption, like that's going to be good versus everything. Meanwhile, if you get a mini rune bracers, you're going to be sad. Or like there's all these different things, and it's just like, uh, there's just too much. I think maybe a few small things is good, but too much of this, it could make or break some matchups, and it's just a little bit insane in others. So that's that. I went over an hour. I try to keep it short, but there's way too much. Basically, I did a lot of criticizing. Remo had to do all the thinking, so it's easier to criticize. So I should have said this at the beginning. I appreciate the fact that Remo puts in the time and thought to do all this, but it's easier for me to sit here and shit talk everything he says, right? So it's bad that it comes off that way, but I'm looking at his suggestions from the point of view of ladder players, and I think some of the things he does allows for a lot more abusive play, and it also does not lead to a better ladder experience for the majority of players. I think things like Orc would just dominate. So that's my point of view. I think everyone should give their own, because obviously Blizzard does look at these things. So if Remo gets to put his stuff out, for example, and I'm not saying they just follow everything Remo says, but if Remo puts his stuff out and there is no suggestions otherwise, well, they have less to look at. So I would like to see other people actually make suggestions. Also comment on Neo, Remo, inevitably Grubby, and whoever else who put their suggestions out. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks.